The snow was heavy that day. Not just cold, it was thick, like a blanket of silence trying to cover something ancient, something lost, the kind of silence that does not comfort, but warns. On the forgotten moon of Vayara 9, a lone human scout walked. Across that silence Jack rattled, a man with scars on his hands and more behind his eyes. He was not supposed to be there. The mission was routine. A dead beacon, no signs of life. Just another cleanup op on a planet nobody cared about anymore. But Jack had a habit of looking where others did not, so he kept going through snow that swallowed footprints within seconds. His breath came hard. Every step was a fight. He should have turned back instead. He found a cave collapsed, crushed by time and storm. But something flickered deep inside, a faint signal barely alive. He pulled rocks with frozen fingers, cut his hand more than once, but he got through. What he saw inside stopped him cold. An alien pod, split open, smoke drifting through the air, and there, half covered in frost, a Vayari female lying motionless, skin marked with tiger stripes, eyes wide but empty. He almost turned away. Then he saw her arms wrapped around something small, something breathing. Her eyes were still shut, but she moved. Barely weak, shivering, Jack knelt down. He didn't speak her language. She didn't need him to. Her fingers twitched toward the child, then went still. The mother was gone. Jack looked at the cub. He had no orders for this, no protocol, but he didn't think. He acted. He wrapped the small creature in his coat, held her close to his chest. She didn't resist, didn't cry, just pressed her face into his warmth, like she already knew it meant safety. He called her Carrie. The name just came to him. Maybe it was from a story. Maybe it was something his mother used to say. He couldn't remember. What he remembered was how Carrie looked at him. Not like an alien, not like prey, but like someone who trusted him without question. For 3 days, they stayed hidden in the cave. Jack fed her his rations, crushed them down, soaked them in heat packs, let her eat from his hand. She purred sometimes. Other times she slept curled against his side, breathing slow, steady. She was more than intelligent. She was aware, curious, watching him, studying every move he made. He taught her how to sip water from melted snow, how to keep warm by wrapping the emergency foil close. She learned fast, faster than any human child could. Jack kept checking for a signal, but the storm blocked everything. The ice above them thickened by the hour. Food was running out, oxygen was dropping. So he made a choice. He wrapped Carrie tighter in his coat, placed her gently in the safest corner, surrounded her with heat modules, whispered words he didn't know she understood. Stay here, stay warm, help is coming. Then he left. He climbed back into the storm, barely able to stand, his vision fading. But he lit the flare. He made the signal. They found him 6 hours later, frozen, barely alive. No one believed his story. No trace of the cub remained. The snow had erased her. The mission log reported environmental trauma, hallucinations. Jack was discharged, medically unfit, mentally unstable. He never argued, never corrected the record. He just disappeared. 20 years passed. Earth changed. Technology grew. Wars came and went. New threats replaced old ones. No one remembered Vayara Ninudal. Today, above the skies of Earth, something massive arrived. An alien fleet, black and gold, sharp like claws and silent as the grave. No warning, no transmissions, just presence heavy and impossible to ignore. The world held its breath. Earth's defense grid activated. Fighter wings scrambled. Leaders shouted into radios, but the fleet did not attack. Instead, one ship opened its core, unfolded like a blooming flower of light and metal. From the center, a single figure stepped out, in feet tall, clad in armor that shimmered with the pattern of a tiger. Her hair was braided into gold threads, her eyes fierce, burning with memory. She looked down at the planet below, then spoke. Her voice echoed through all frequencies, translated into every language at once. No emotion, only command. I seek the man who once fed me. Silence followed. No threats, no conditions, just that one sentence across Earth. Nobody understood except one man in a small outpost on the edge of Alaska. A former scout watched the skies grow darker. He dropped his mug. The coffee spilled onto the floor, but he didn't notice. He walked outside, looked up, eyes wide. He saw her Face on the news screen, bigger than life, broadcast everywhere. He knew those eyes. He remembered the warmth pressed into his chest. The purring in the cold nights. She was not a cub anymore. She was an empress, and she had come back not to destroy, not to rule, but to find him, the man who once fed her. She remembered the cold before she remembered her name. She remembered pain before she remembered language. But the one thing she never forgot was warmth. When Kari opened her eyes inside that cave, the human was gone, but his scent remained, his coat still wrapped around her, still warm, still safe. She had no words for what he gave her, not back then, but something deep in her small chest had burned. A promise without language, a bond stronger than fear. The heat packs died within days. The snow began to creep into the cracks. Hunger clawed at her belly, and something primal inside her woke up. She crawled through the ruins, her paws bleeding, her body weak, but her spirit refused to break. The storm above the cave raged for days, but Kari kept moving. She remembered how the human melted snow, so she copied him. She remembered how he wrapped the foil around her chest, so she did the same. She even mimicked his voice, murmuring sounds she did not understand, but they gave her strength. Outside the cave, nothing waited but ice and death. Still she climbed into the wind. Predators roamed Vayaranine, creatures with glass skin and silent claws, but they smelled the human on her, and they left her alone. She survived by eating moss, drinking from frozen streams, sleeping inside dead trees. She lived because something in her refused to die. Weeks passed, then months, then years. Her body grew, her mind sharpened. She learned to stalk, to strike, to lead. By the time she was 12, she had tamed the wilds. At 15, she fought off a slaver crew that came to hunt rare life forms. She tore open their ship, claimed it as her own, and flew into the stars for the first time. Her people, the Vayari, were not pleased. They called her impure, a beast raised by dirt and filth. They tried to chain her, tried to silence her. She gave them fear instead. She challenged the bloodborne heirs in ritual combat. They laughed until she broke one spine in front of 1,000 warriors. She took his title, then his ships, then his throne. Kari became Empress, not by blood, but by fury, by survival, by the fire given to her by a single act of human kindness. They asked her how she had risen, how she had beaten every warrior, every noble, every general. She only said one thing: I remember how it felt to be small and loved. They did not understand, but they followed. Her empire grew not by conquest, but by fear of her power and awe of her presence. Yet in her private chambers, she kept a small item wrapped in crystal, protected by fire walls. An old earth military coat, still stained with ash, still smelling of snow. She would sit with it in silence, place her clawed hand across the torn collar, close her eyes and remember. She did not know his name, only his face, only the way he spoke to her like she mattered. He could have let her die, but he gave her food, he gave her warmth, he gave her his voice when she had none. That was why she returned, not for war, not for power, but to honor a promise made in the eyes of a child. You saved me. Now I save you. When the Earth fleet panicked, she gave no commands to fire. When they raised shields, she gave no threats. She waited, then sent a message: bring me the man who once fed me. Across her bridge, her generals waited for further orders. They feared war, they feared shame, but Kari only watched the stars, waiting for a face she thought she would never see again. Her empire whispered in fear. Why would their empress care for a human? Why would she cross the galaxy for a single forgotten moment? None understood, but Kari did. He had taught her mercy in a universe made of blades. He had made her a queen without knowing, and now she would find him, even if she had to tear through every lie Earth ever told. The world stopped spinning, not in truth, but in feeling. News channels showed the sky over every major city, and above it, the alien fleet, not moving, not firing, just watching. Governments scrambled for control. Satellites tracked the flagship. Leaders whispered through closed doors. Everyone asked the same question: why are they here? No one had an answer, not until the message came: bring me the man who once fed me. The words were simple, But their weight broke through borders the Empress did not ask. For Earth's leaders, she did not ask for weapons. She asked for a memory military databases burned through old logs. Search teams hunted mission files from 20 years ago. One entry surfaced via a 9 scout report. Abandoned alien cub, unverified. Claim mentally unfit personnel mission closed. The soldier's name was Jack Reynolds, retired, no family, no service honors, officially marked unstable. But the Empress remembered him, and now the whole world was searching for a man they had already forgotten in a cabin buried in Alaskan snow. Jack stared at the screen. His hands trembled not from fear, but from something older, something deeper. He knew her face. Older now, fierce, powerful, but still the same eyes, still the same look from the cave, as if she had never left it. The news anchors called her dangerous. They called her a threat, but Jack saw the truth. She was looking for him. Not Earth, him. For the first time in years, he spoke her name aloud, Carrie, and somewhere above the planet on a throne of steel and fire, she felt Earth command agents reached him before sunrise. No warning, no time to pack. They took him in silence. Black uniforms, cold faces, no emotion. They brought him to the orbital station above Earth, kept him behind glass, monitored every heartbeat, every word. He told them the truth. He told them everything, how he found her in the snow, how he kept her alive, how he left her with every hope she would survive. They did not believe him. They called him delusional. They said it was impossible, but the fleet still waited, and Carrie said nothing more, only that she would not speak until the man was brought to her. Pressure built Earth could not afford war, and yet pride stood in the way of peace still. The choice was made. One shuttle, one man. He dressed him in a containment suit, ran test scans, psychological evaluations. None of it mattered when the doors opened to the alien flagship. Jack stepped forward inside. It was silent, not cold, not warm, just silent. He was led through hallways of smooth metal, walls pulsing like they were alive. Guards watched him without moving, armor that shimmered like night sky, eyes glowing faint gold. They feared him, but not because of what he was, because of what he meant to her. The end of the hall, the throne room, waited, and on it she sat, Kara, not the cub, not the warrior, but the Empress, tall, still powerful in ways he could not describe yet. When their eyes met, something broke inside both of them. She stood, not rushed, not slow, just steady. She crossed the space between them. No guards moved, no weapons raised. Whole ship watched without breathing. Jack removed his helmet. Her eyes widened. No words yet, only memory. He opened his mouth, but the words fell apart, so she spoke first. You are older now, but still the same. He nodded. I thought you were gone. She stepped closer. I was, until you gave me life. The silence that followed held everything, grief, relief, and something more. Carrie looked past him toward the stars outside the window. They want war. Your people fear me. Jack stepped forward. Then let them fear you. You've earned it. But I never did. She turned to him, eyes soft. That's why I came back, not for Earth, for you. Jack shook his head. Then why wait? Why threaten? Because they would not listen until I gave them reason. He studied her, then asked the only question he cared about. Did you survive because of mesh? Smiled. Not the kind a queen gives, but the kind a child gives when remembering warmth. I lived because I believed you would come back, and when you didn't, I became strong enough to find you instead. He closed his eyes, guilt bleeding through every bone. I wanted to. I tried. They said you were gone. She touched his shoulder, clawed but gentle. Then we both were lost. Until now. Outside, the Earth Council demanded answers. Military leaders asked for scans, threat levels, contingency plans. Inside the throne room, there was only silence, not fear, not rage, just two souls reconnecting in the ruins of forgotten time. Carrie turned to her advisors. Tell Earth, we will not fire, we will not threaten. We have found what we came for. Then she looked at Jack. And I am not leaving without him. The throne room emptied, not by command, but by presence. When Carrie looked at her guards, they bowed and stepped back, not because she spoke, but because they understood this moment was not for empires, not for warriors. This moment belonged to two souls. From a snow-covered cave, Jack stood in silence, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from memory. She had grown tall, majestic. Her armor glowed with symbols he did not understand. Each one earned in battle, each one telling a story of survival, but her eyes still gold, still the same, still full of something she never let the galaxy take from her. Carrie walked closer, her boots silent on the crystal floor. She stopped only when they were face to face. "Do you still remember my name?" He nodded. "Carrie." She closed her eyes just for a second. That name from his voice, it was not a title, not a command, it was a truth. She reached forward. Her clawed fingers touched the side of his face, the same way she had once nuzzled into his coat as a cub. He didn't pull away. He let her remember. "You have changed," she said softly. "So have you." Jack replied. Carrie smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "You were the first warmth I ever knew, the first voice, the first kindness. Everything after that was made of stone and blood." Jack lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry, I left you. I should have stayed. I should have gone back." "You were a soldier," she whispered. "You were a man trapped in rules. I was just a creature no one believed existed." Jack looked up. "But you lived. You survived more than anyone ever should." And still Carrie said, "I never forgot the man who fed." Mesh turned, walked to the center of the room, then sat not on her throne, but on the steps beneath it. "Sit with me," she said, "not as a subject, not as a soldier, but as the only thing I ever trusted." Jack hesitated, then joined her, the metal beneath him cold, but her presence made it feel warm. They sat in silence for a long time, the kind of silence that heals instead of wounds. "I have questions," he finally said. "Ask," she replied. "Why me? Why come back for one man, one moment? Because one moment can shape an empire." She answered, "I built my kingdom not on revenge, but on the memory of a coat and a hand that never hurt me." Jack's eyes welled. He didn't speak, couldn't. Carrie leaned closer. "I needed to see if that man still existed, because if he did, then maybe this universe still has hope." Jack took a breath. "And what do you want from me now?" "Nothing," she said, "and everything. You are a symbol to my people, proof that not all humans destroy. But many in my court, many in my army, do not agree. They see you as weakness, a crack in my armor. Are they wrong?" He asked. Carrie looked at him with the calm of a queen and the pain of a child. "They are not wrong to fear, but they are wrong to forget where I came from. I came from snow and silence, and the hands of a human who chose to protect life instead of end it. That is not weakness. That is strength." Jack touched the floor beside him. His fingers traced the carvings, symbols of her people. It was beautiful. "Terrifying alien, do you regret what you became?" She shook her head. "No, because I became what I had to survive, to lead. But I carry you with me in every step. Earth doesn't trust you," he said quietly. "I know." She replied, "They think you came to conquer then. Give them something else to believe in." Carrie turned to him. "What do you mean, come with me to Earth? Speak not as an empress, but as the child who was saved. Show them the truth." Her face stiffened. "That is dangerous and foolish. Who is love?" he said. "But you came anyway." She did not answer because there was no defense against the truth. He stood, offered his hand. "You followed me through memory. Now let me follow you through fire." Carrie stared at that hand, so human, so soft, and yet it held power no army could match. She reached up, took it. The room felt smaller. The warships outside felt farther. In that moment, the past became present, and hope became real. Her guards returned, eyes wide, unsure. Carrie stood beside Jack, tall, unshaken. "Tell Earth," she said, "I will speak." But only beside him. The message went out across every frequency, across every language. The Empress of the Vayari will address Earth, not from the sky, but from the ground, not as a conqueror, but as the cub who was once fed by a human. Not everyone cheered for her return. Not everyone believed in the bond she carried across the stars. Inside the throne chambers of the Vayari flagship, far from the public view, dark minds whispered. They did not wear armor. They wore silence, and in that silence, they planned. "The Empress has changed," one voice said. "She once ruled through fire. Now she kneels beside a human. She risks everything for a feeling," another hissed. for a memory that should have stayed buried in snow. They gathered in secret 5 nobles, 10 generals, and 1 high priest, all bound by tradition, by fear, and by power. They had sworn loyalty, but loyalty has limits, and theirs ended where Earth began. She is weak, one of them growled, and weakness is death in the heart of her own empire. Carrie walked unaware, not blind, but unwilling to believe her own blood would turn against hers. She had prepared to face Earth's fear, but not betrayal from within on the day of her speech to the world. She stood with Jack beside her, clad in ceremonial armor, not of war, but of truth. He wore no weapons, only a simple Earth uniform, clean worn, real. The broadcast lit up the skies. Earth held its breath. Carrie spoke first, not as a queen, but as someone who had once been left in the cold. I am Carrie, Empress of the Vayari, but once I was only a cub freezing alone until one man gave me food and warmth and life. The world watched in silence. He could have turned away, but he didn't. He chose to save what he did not understand, and that, she said, is why I believe in peace. Jack stood beside her, eyes steady. I was told to leave her, he said, but I couldn't. She was just a child, and I saw something in her eyes, something human, something worth saving. Carrie looked at him, not with command but with trust. I did not come to conquer. I came to return what was given. The speech shook the planet. Protests turned to questions. Questions turned to hope, but in the shadows, the coup moved forward inside her own vessel. A device was planted, small, unseen, set to trigger during her return from Earth. A message was forged, encrypted in Vayari code, framed to show Jack as the source, evidence that the human had manipulated her mind, evidence that he had turned her against her own people. The signal was sent not to her, but to her generals. One of them confronted her in the command chamber. Empress, we have intercepted a traitor transmission. Carrie frowned. From who? From him. The human Jack stood across the room, his face blank, but his eyes confused. I sent nothing, he said. The general showed the message, the code, the timing. Jack looked at her, and for the first time since their reunion, he saw doubt in her eyes. I didn't do this, he said again. I would never. But the air had changed. The room had shifted. Carrie turned to him, her voice quiet. You once told me the truth always finds a way. Now it must. Until then I cannot protect you. Jack stepped back. You don't believe may believe in you, she said, but I must protect my people. She raised her hand and guards surrounded him. Jack did not resist, not because he was guilty, but because he saw the war in her eyes. This was not punishment, it was fear, not of him, but of losing everything she had built. He was taken, locked in a chamber of crystal and silence. No chains, no torture, just waiting outside. Whispers grew. The Empress has fallen. The human has poisoned her mind. The throne is weak. Carrie sat alone in her private hall. The coat he once gave her now in her hands. She clutched it, like it held answers. He saved me once, she whispered. But can he save me again? She ordered a new investigation, one that did not rely on code, but on truth. Her most loyal guards were sent into the walls. They followed the trail, past lies, past shadows, until they found it. The forgery, the plot, the betrayal. The priest, the generals, even the one who gave her the false message, all tied by blood and fear. Carrie stood, eyes cold, heart burning. They used my kindness as a weapon. They used him as a shield. No more. She stormed into the council hall. No armor, no ceremony. Only fire. She faced them, each one, and spoke with a voice that made the walls shake. You feared weakness. You thought I had become soft, but mercy is not weakness. Love is not shame. And I am still the cub who survived your world. I just learned to forgive now. I remember how to fight. The guards stepped forward. Her enemies reached for blades, but it was too late. Carrie had returned, not just as a queen, but as the warrior the stars remembered. They fell one by one, stripped of power, stripped of fear. She walked to the chamber where Jack waited, opened the door herself. He looked up, tired, but not broken. She stepped inside, her voice quiet. I should have trusted you. He stood. I would have waited forever. She reached out, and this time she did not ask him to follow. She asked him to walk beside her. The betrayal had been exposed, the traitors removed, but the damage remained. Carrie stood in the war hall of her flagship, eyes locked on the star map glowing beneath her feet. The lines once showed trade routes and peace channels, now they showed blockades and warpaths. The rebellion had not died with the generals, it had only scattered like ash carried by wind. Multiple Vayari factions had declared her unfit. Ships broke away from her command, some headed toward Earth, others moved to strike her loyal worlds. And in the silence between these movements, Earth prepared its own answer. Across the skies, human fleets powered up, missiles armed, shields raised. Jack stood beside Carrie as the tension built. He wore light armor now, nothing heavy, but enough to remind everyone that he would not stand behind her. He would stand with her. She looked at him across the war table. You should leave. You do not belong in this fire. He shook his head. I gave you warmth once. Now I give you my strength. She said nothing, but her hand reached for his, and in that touch the fear lessened. They had days, maybe hours. The rebellion forces had activated a long-forbidden war protocol, a weapon called the Core Pulse, designed to burn systems from the inside out, and Earth was its first target. If they activated it, Earth would not survive. Carrie knew the codes. She knew the locations, and she knew where they would strike from. The abandoned Vayari base on the dark side of Jupiter's largest moon, Ganymede. She ordered her fleet to move, but not everyone followed. Messages came in from splinter admirals. We will not risk our ships for your human pet. Your weakness is your end. Stand down or be erased. She crushed the communicator in her hand. Cowards, she whispered. They speak of honor while hiding behind fear. Jack watched her closely. You do not have to fight them alone. She looked at him. I never was alone. I just did not see it. Their loyal forces moved fast. 3 destroyers, 2 command cruisers, and her flagship, all headed toward Ganymede. But the rebels moved faster. They had cloaked tech older than Carrie, deadlier than any Earth weapon, and when they arrived, the battle began. No warning, no mercy. Explosions filled the darkness. Ships collided in fire. The stars above Ganymede turned red. Inside her flagship, Carrie stood at the command core, her voice steady, her heart a storm. All batteries. Target their reactor cores. Disable their shields. Do not aim to kill. Aim to end this war. Jack watched the crew follow her orders without question. Even under fire, even in chaos, she had earned them not through fear, but through fire. Then a blast rocked the ship. Systems flickered, the walls cracked. Enemy borders. The warning came too late. Rebel warriors breached the side halls. Blades drawn, armor black as night. Carrie drew her twin plasma rods, glowing with heat, ready to burn. Jack grabbed his pulse rifle. The old instincts came back like breath. They fought together, back to back, strike for strike. She moved like a storm, he moved like a wall. They pushed through the halls, clearing chamber after chamber. But the enemy kept coming in the engine corridor. They found the sabotage team. One rebel had planted a core destabilizer. If triggered, the flagship would fall into the moon's gravity well, burning everyone alive. Jack rushed forward, took down the guard, and reached for the device. It was already active. Carrie shouted stop, but he didn't. Opened the panel, wires pulsing, code scrolling fast. He looked at Harry. No, this model I've disarmed one before, but I need time. She nodded, then turned to face the hall. She would hold the line. Minutes passed, then seconds. The final wave came. Blasters fired. Sparks filled the corridor. Carrie fought without rest. Her armor cracked, her arms bleeding, but she did not fall behind her. Jack worked, his fingers fast, his mind focused. Then silence. The lights stabilized. The hum of the ship returned. Jack stood, breathing hard. It's done. She turned, eyes wide. You're insane. He smiled. You already knew that. But before she could answer, another blast hit. Not from the rebels, from space. Earth's fleet had arrived. They saw the flagship under attack. They thought Carrie had betrayed them. Fire rained down from above. No time to explain, no time to send a message. Carrie ran to the bridge, opened all channels, broadcast her voice in every frequency. Earth used. Stand down. This is not your fight. We are under internal attack. Do not fire. But the signal jammed too late. The flagship took another hit. Smoke filled the hall's support beams cracked. Jack pulled her close. We need to escape now. She said, "We need to end this." She turned to her pilot. "Take us above the battle. Send the emergency flare. Earth will recognize it." They did. The flare shone like a second sun, and the firing stopped just in time. The rebel fleet, seeing their chance lost, tried to retreat, but Carrie's destroyers blocked them. The rebellion fell, ship by ship, fire by fire, and when it was over, only silence remained. The battlefield around Ganymede was now full of broken hulls, floating metal in memory. Inside the flagship, Carrie stood bruised, exhausted, but victorious. Jack limped beside her. "You still think I should have left?" She shook her head. "If you had, I would be dead, and so would half the galaxy." They walked together through the wreckage, through the smoke, not as savior and queen, not as soldier and empress, but as the same man and the same cub who once shared warmth in a frozen world. The fire had faded. The smoke cleared. What remained was silence, not the silence of fear, but the kind that comes after a storm, the kind that lets things begin again. Ganymede's orbit was full of wreckage, burnt hulls, broken flagships from both sides drifting like ghosts. Inside the flagship, Kari stood before her people. No throne, no armor, just her voice and the truth. "The rebellion has ended," she said, "but its cause still lives inside us. Fear, tradition, pride." She paused. "Let them hear it. Let them feel." I was born into that silence. I was raised by it, but I was saved by something your books never taught. A single act, a single hand, a single human. Her voice did not rise. It softened, and in that softness, it carried more power than any command. Jack stood at the edge of the room, not behind her, not below her, beside her. She turned to face the Veari crowd. "Some of you believe love is weakness, that it bends the mind, breaks the blade. But I have learned that love is fire. It burns through walls. It melts fear, and it forges the strongest kind of strengths." She looked at Jack, eyes full of something old and something new. "He gave me warmth when the stars gave me cold. He gave me food when I had no name, and now he gives me purpose." The crowd listened, some confused, some still afraid, but most silent. Open. Carrie walked down from the center. She stood on level ground. "No crown, no robe. I am stepping down." As Empress gasps moved through the chamber like wind. "Until now, I ruled through survival, through fire. But peace needs more than fear. It needs balance." She looked at her commanders, her scholars, her healers. "Choose among you someone who can lead with both strength and stillness." The healers, "Choose among you someone who can lead with both strength and stillness. Let them know, I do not leave power, I leave control, because I have already found what I was searching for." She turned to Jack, held out her hand, and he took it. The ship did not cheer, it did not roar. It simply breathed, as if the very walls understood what had just changed. Earth sent its own message, not of fear, not of weapons, but of welcome. A high council was formed. Two worlds, once strangers, now bound by one moment. In the snow months passed. Then a year. Carrie and Jack chose no palace, no capital. They built a home on the neutral moon of Solari, where both human trees and Veari roots could grow every day. They walked the valley trail, past lakes that shimmered with alien light, past wind that smelled like both snow and sun. He planted seeds. She told stories together. They created something new. One morning, as the sun rose with double rings, Jack stood at the edge of the cliff, looking over the valley. Carrie came beside him, rested her head against his shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not once. Not even the part where I almost got you killed." She teased. He smiled. "That was the fun part." They laughed, the kind of laughter that only comes after pain, the kind that fills empty spaces. Jack looked up at the sky. "Do you ever miss being Empress?" Carrie thought for a long time. "Sometimes, when the stars speak too softly, or when I smell fire in the wind. But then I remember something." What? She leaned closer. "Even an empress can be lonely, but you made me feel like I belonged before I ever wore a crown." He looked at her. "And you made me feel needed when I thought I was forgotten." They stood in silence, the kind that heals, not hides. Later that evening, they sat by a fire, sharing fruit from both worlds. Watching stars drift overhead, a young girl approached them, fiery markings on her arms, human eyes. She was a child of both, one of many now born between the stars. She sat at Carrie's feet. Tell the story again, the one where you were small and cold, and he found you. Carrie smiled. That is my favorite story too. And so she told it of snow that wasn't silent, of a cave hidden by ice, of a coat that smelled like warmth, and a human who gave her more than food. He gave her the will to survive. The fire flickered. The child listened with wide eyes, and in the sky above, a new world turned quietly. Two species, once strangers, now woven together by something stronger than blood, stronger than history, a flame that had never gone out, only changed shape. Love had not saved the galaxy, but it had changed it, and sometimes that was enough.